it's me, OG Duffy, back with a versus video and a game so good, I had to give it both screens. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the classic Capcom arcade game that is Ghouls N Ghosts. What a game. Now, this was a follow-up to the classic Ghosts N Goblins, which I covered before. I think only on the 8-bit systems, though. There's the thumbnail. Watch it after this if you haven't already done so. And as always, we're going to look at all the different versions that was come out on the home systems, and we will compare. And I will tell you what I think is the best, all right? But before we get into all that, we will look at the arcade original first with some basic gameplay, so we can see what we're comparing to. The systems we will be looking at in finer detail to compete with each other, so to speak, are the 8-bit systems. Yes, we're going to be looking at the Commodore 64, the Amstrad CPC, and that little fella, yes, the ZX Spectrum. He always comes through sometimes, you know. Might be small, but he packs a punch on some games. Anyway, they're the 8-bit systems we'll be looking at. Then we'll be looking at the 16-bit home computers of the day, the Commodore Amiga and the Atari ST. Of course, them two go head to head. And then there are some other systems we'll be looking at. But unfortunately, we won't go doing verses with them because they were sort of released independently. So for example, we'll be looking at the Sega Master System version. But there was no NES version of this, which is a real shame because I think it would have been a great head-to-head them two, you know. And then we'll be looking at the Sega Megadrive or Genesis, if you're that side of the pond, guys, version. Okay, which was one of them games that sort of made the system as well. It made the system quite synonymous. It was quite a, it made quite an impact. It was a good version, if I recall. Obviously, this was released on other systems as well, namely the PC Engine, TurboGrafx, I believe, and Sega Saturn. And it was also out on the Super Nintendo, which is this version here. So there we go, Super Nintendo. This is Super Ghouls N Ghosts on the SNES, alright? Now, the reason we're not including this one is because it wasn't an arcade conversion. It sort of done its own thing, but it done it very well, if I recall, so we will definitely be taking a look at this version at some point in the future, alright? So, a bit of homage there to the SNES version with Super Ghouls N Ghosts, okay? Put you back on the shelf where you belong. Let's get to the arcade version so we can see exactly what we're looking at. Ghouls N Ghosts, Capcom, don't mind if I do. Needs no introduction really. You all know I love me Capcom games, and this was a great game as well. A brilliant follow-up to you know, Ghosts N Goblins. Graphically enhanced, obviously had a few years further development, so graphically, sound-wise, everything, it's just a classic arcade game. Might be classic, but it still don't make it any easier. It's as tough as Ghosts N Goblins was, okay? So I won't be getting too far in this in this quick play, but this is just to give us a sample so we know what we're comparing to on the other systems. Let's get a credit into this. Woo! Spooky music. Very well done, of course. Right. Lovely little intro. Of course. There he is. Bad guys rob the missus. Got to go and save the missus. Okay, so you start with your lances and jump. They're the only two buttons you need. Occasionally the guys that come up from the ground and stuff, they drop stuff, and you can collect power-ups and stuff like that. But look at the graphics on this and the music. The music is very interesting, and we have to make a point of the music because we will be looking at the different variants of music in the different versions that we'll be looking at shortly, okay? So different power-ups, as I say, and you get them chests, you destroy them, he comes along, and now he's made me into a chicken, look. Sorry, I'm a little chicken, there's nothing I can do. Can I fly if I do? So it's only for a few seconds though, but he does different things to you, curses you in different ways. As I say, honestly, so much in the similar vein of Ghosts N Goblins, and it's a tough game, it really is, you know. But is it just me? I think that's why people of a certain age have quite a bit of patience, because we used to play games like this. We'd pay to play these, and my God, I've got my super armour, look at me now. Mate, I'm hard as nails now. Oh, I just love the tune on this, it's brilliant. Right, a bit of timing now. There we go, sorted. Oh, look, a load of these birds here now. These vultures going to come down and get me. You get sort of bosses in this, end of level, mid-level bosses and all sorts. This was also recently released on the Nintendo Switch, which I should sort of tell people about. It's been all updated though, and it's got Ghosts N Goblins and Ghouls N Ghosts all in one. This map as well is interesting, because you don't see that on all the versions we're going to look at shortly, alright? The lance. Now, to be honest, the lance, although it's the starting weapon, it's the weapon I always preferred. And that and the daggers, I think, were better on the original Ghosts N Goblins, because it would give you the... There we go, here comes the curse. What's it got? Oh, I got past it, so I didn't get it. But I think this gives us a general idea of what we're looking at today. So all in all, great game, graphically great, bright graphics, brilliant music, great sound effects, comedic effect. Look at that, you're a little old man now, you know what I mean? I just love Capcom. To me, this is just classic Capcom right here, you know? I think the graphics and everything just come into their own. So that sums it up, really. I mean, it's just a beautiful game all round. So let's go take a look at the 8-bit systems first on this, all right? And I think we'll kick things off with the... Let's do the Commodore 64 first. And remember, do stay around for my verdicts after all the versions.
First off, we're looking at the Commodore 64 version. Now, not dissimilar to the original Ghosts N Goblins, but the graphics are slightly smaller, I felt, on this version than on the original. Another thing here that's bugged me about the Commodore 64 version is the theme tune. Why did they not stick to the arcade original theme? I mean, let's be honest, the SID chip is more than capable of doing it, I'm sure, but they chose to opt for this instead. Now, one distinguishing feature between all of the 8-bit and the 16-bit home computer versions we're going to be looking at, they all suffered the same problem, and it is this. Whenever you wanted to jump, you had to push up on the joystick. There was no separate button on the keyboard or whatever, just for a separate jump, and it would have made the game so much more playable. Well, that's the C64 version. Next up, we're looking at the humble ZX Spectrum. Now, interestingly, what you see there, that map, this was the only version from the 8-bit and 16-bit home computer systems that actually showed that map. No music, but the sound effects that the Spectrum uses are very well suited to this game. Now, the scrolling on this, again, was really impressive, as was the first Ghost N Goblin game on the Spectrum as well. It's a great frame rate, scrolls really, really nicely. Again, that problem of pushing up to jump is evident, as it is in all the 8-bit and 16-bit systems, as I've already said. But overall, very playable, and a decent port for the little specky here. So not only was Ghosts N Goblins a good conversion on the ZX Spectrum, so was Ghouls N Ghosts. Good effort. Now let's go take a look at the Amstrad CPC and see how well this converted to that. Here we've got the Amstrad version. Now, firstly, what the main character sprite, what is going on with that? He looks so robotic. It's not good at all. Now, the biggest fault with this for me, obviously no music, but some sound effects, you know, was the scrolling. You had to sort of walk to the edge of the screen before it would scroll to the next one, etc. So that really did let it down for me. Could have done so much better, let's be honest. We all know what the Amstrad's capable of. We've seen it in so many of these versus videos now, and it can hold its own more than most systems, you know. So quite what was going on with this one, I really don't know. But unfortunately, it is what it is, to coin a phrase. That was the 8-bit computer systems. We're going to go take a look at the 16-bits now. And we'll see how they did, you know, because they've got a lot more power to them. So it'd be interesting to see if they handled the conversion very well. First off, the Atari ST. The music. What were they thinking? I'll be honest, the arcade tune or theme that runs throughout this game is such an iconic, good tune. It's really catchy and everything. And yet, they decided, in their infinite wisdom, US Gold, whoever did this on all these systems, US Gold did, that they were just going to rewrite the tune. maybe they thought their efforts were better. I really don't know. Now, there are elements you can look at this and you can see graphically it's obviously Ghouls N Ghosts. I mean, mainly the backdrops and like the guillotines and stuff. But the main character sprite, I think it's quite poorly drawn. Difference with this one compared to the Commodore Amiga, and we're coming to the Amiga in a moment, was the controls. They were slightly smoother on the ST version than they were the Amiga. Talking of the Amiga, let's go take a look and see how that does. The Amiga here, as you can see, not a lot between the Atari ST and the Commodore Amiga version of Capcom's Ghouls N Ghosts. I mean, the backdrops look alright graphically. Again, the main character sprite is a bit poor, and as we just stated, you know, US Gold on these home computer systems did not do the best in the world, really. So they could have done a bit more justice to the game, I feel. But, you know, what do you guys at home think? Let me know. And as I just said, in comparison to the ST, the controls on this felt a bit clunkier. It just didn't seem to play as smooth. It was just felt a bit laggier, you know. But again, let me have your comments, ideas, suggestions, your memories of this great Capcom classic. Because let's be honest, it is a great game. First things first, no having to push up to jump. Yippee! Brilliant. Thank you. We have a separate button for fire and jump. Amazing. I'll be honest, right? The Sega Master Systems, you know, sure, it had its limitations. But listen to that tune. Honestly, the graphics and that, alright, not the sharpest in the world, but you know what? They've done a really good job on this. It can get a bit laggy when the screen gets busy, don't get me wrong. But for the Master System, this is a really, really good conversion, and one I was well chuffed with, you know. One slight difference to the arcade, with power-ups, you reach a point where you can sort of choose which power-up you'd want and things like that. That was a slight different twist on the arcade original, don't get me wrong, but all in all, a great job, Sega. You've done really well on this one. Good stuff, Master System. Shame there wasn't an NES version to compare it to. And now we come to the final version we're looking at, which is the Sega Megadrive, and probably the most arcade accurate of the systems we're looking at today. Don't get me wrong, I know this was out on the PC Engine Super Graphics, and I know it's been out on the Nintendo Switch, and there's been other versions as well, PlayStation and stuff over the years, but we're sticking to sort of the originals, really, of the coin-op conversions, which are these. This was packaged quite early on for the Sega Mega Drive, or Genesis if you're American, and in terms of the conversion, it's one game that Capcom had no dealings with at all. They'd left Sega to do the conversion themselves completely, and what a job they did. All in all, graphically not as sharp as the arcade, but the sound there, the themes there, and it's a good conversion. Well done, Mega Drive.
So that concludes Ghouls N Ghosts, alright? Great little game, you know, one I've got a lot of love for because it's a Capcom game. Now anyway, let's get to my all-important verdicts, but before we do that, that usual message. If you haven't already done so, hit the subscribe button, hit the like, and let me know in your comments, most importantly, your thoughts on this, your memories on owning this on any of the systems we've looked at, and any other eight-bit verdicts. It goes to, in third place, the Amstrad CPC. There was no sound. Basic sound effects. The graphics were quite poor, especially the character sprites, especially the main character sprite. The worst thing of all, and again, with all systems, the controls on this were clunky in respect of, if you wanted to jump, you had to push up to jump. There wasn't a separate button for jump, which was a bit of a bugger, really. But I gave it the third position as well, mainly because of the scrolling. You'd sort of reach the end of the screen, then it'd blop, blop. So it wasn't that smooth scroll that we like. It was just screen at a time, so to speak. So for me, Amstrad, sorry guys, but you're in third this week. So the Amstrad's in third, which means second and first position. Right, if I summarise both first, both the Commodore 64 and the ZX Spectrum, and then I'll declare which one I've chosen. Okay, I think that's only fair. So, right, let's look at the Commodore 64 version first. Graphically, not dissimilar to Ghosts N Goblins, the original, the first, okay, which is really good. But I think the sprites and everything else was slightly smaller, all right? But for me, I think the biggest disappointment was probably the music. They did some music, and it was good Commodore 64 music that we'd come to appreciate and love. But do you know what? They didn't even attempt the arcade original tune. And I'm sure they could have done a good version of it because it was the SID chip, mate. I love the SID chip. Okay, so that was a bit of a down point for the Commodore version for me. And again, the same with the controls on the Commodore version that all the other versions suffered with. You had to push up to jump, which was just such a ball ache, it really was, and really affected the game controls. Now we come to the Spectrum. The Spectrum of the 8-bit version was the only version to feature that map that you see to show you how far you've gone through the levels and things. So hats off to the Spectrum for that. Graphically, it's as you would expect the Spectrum to be. But on a positive note, the scrolling on it was really good, and it played well, and it didn't feel too clunky under the controls. So it was very, very, very playable. All in all, very enjoyable, okay? So, the winner of the 8-bits this week, I'm giving it to the Sinclair ZX Spectrum. Okay, I know it's controversial, and I know a lot of you guys will disagree with me or agree with me, but drop them in the comments. Let me know your thoughts and opinions. So, third was Amstrad, second the Commodore 64, and first, the humble little Specky. Well done, Specky. Let's move on to the 16-bit verdicts. So both the Commodore, Amiga, and the ST, again, with the controls. Yes, you got it. You had to push up to jump. Why? What were they thinking? You know what I mean? Anyway, they're moving on. So, both versions had music, alright? But they decided to completely rework the original arcade tune. Why? It was such a great, great little ditty of a tune. Why recreate it? Out of laziness. I can only guess it was something to do with laziness. I don't know, but I'm sure some of you guys out there will know. Drop it in the comments. Tell me why. Graphically, I think the Amiga had the edge over the ST. But you know what? When it come down to gameplay, I felt the ST was just slightly more responsive, and the controls weren't as clunky as the Amiga. So, the 16-bit winner for this game by Capcom, I'm giving it to the Atari ST. You agree, disagree? Let me know in the comments. ST takes it. Sega Master System version. Now, really well done to the Master System here. You had a separate button for jump, which made the controls just amazing and awesome, so thank you for that. The sound was good. They did replicate the arcade theme tune, and you know what? They didn't do an half bad job on that, so well done Sega Master System. Graphically was good. The only downside really was when the screen got a bit busy, it would suffer a little bit of slowdown, and the main difference from the arcade difference was where you sort of get your power-ups and stuff on the arcade. It would give you a little shop, and you can go in and sort of invest and choose which power-ups you wanted and stuff, which wasn't a bad little twist on it really, and I quite like the way they've done that. So a respectful version there, definitely respectful version. And then we come to the Megadrive version. Out of all the versions we looked at today, the Megadrive version was probably the most arcade accurate out of the lot, you know. It was good. And it's one that my Mrs. OG, bless her, before we met, she bought herself a Sega Mega Drive with the Sonic and this game bundled with it. Okay, so she had Ghouls N Ghosts and Sonic bundled with it. Graphically, it was really good. Not as sharp as the arcade, but not far off it, you know, so really accurate. And the sound was good, and it done the theme tune as well, really, really well. Quite an early release on the Mega Drive, and one that was done by Sega themselves. Capcom didn't have any input on the programming of this, on the port over and stuff. So Sega did a brilliant job on this. So all in all, Mega Drive version was absolutely pucker, and the Sega Master System version as well, really good. Now guys, if you've enjoyed this, hit the subs button and all that, and if you've not already done so, watch that one or that one, because they're great videos and I made them and you're supporting me. Anyway, I've been OG Duffy. I'll catch you next time out. Laters.